So hopefully you just installed Krita AI in less than 11 minutes. But as you make your way into the program, you're probably overwhelmed with the sheer amount of tools and where everything is kind of situated. And some of you might be ready to hightail it and run, but I promise you, if you can just lock in for a small amount of time, I promise I will wipe away all of that uncertainty and save you so much time if you're just starting out. Not to mention, also show you a general workflow of how tools interact with each other, not just saying this tool does this, but why this tool matters is because of this. You will do this hundreds of times. So you will want to know what this does and always have it hotkeyed or create a shortcut for it. So TLDR for how this video is going to be laid out, it's simple as this. It's going to be in 2 segments. The first segment is going to be going over the lay of the land, i.e. what the whole makeup of it all looks like. The second part is going to be talking about the most used tools and what they're kind of used for and why you should understand what they do. And in the second segment, I'm going to show you how to save hours and hours of time when doing this. And believe me, you're going to want to do it. But more on that later. Alas, let's get to it. And of course, the first thing I would like to mention is our school course. It's really simple. Just go to the link down below, take you to our lovely community. You make your way to the classroom setting, fantastic. And then when you're there, you click the first one there that says the beginner's guide. And this is a beautiful laid out and streamlined process if you don't want to listen to me ramble, but I tried to cover as many bases as I possibly could. If you read through learning and take instructions really well, boom, the written one is great. If you want to see more detail and have more better clarity for video, this is great. And of course, if you just want to listen to me ramble while I'm speaking, that also works. Whatever you end up deciding. Covered as many bases as I possibly could because I want you to succeed. All right, so as you can see, this is Krita AI, and this is the plugin that we installed last time, the AI aspect of Krita. But as you're looking around, you might see certain things that you do not see. For instance, you might not have the advanced color selector or the tool options. So if you ever see something like that, it's really simple. All you need to do is this. You go up to settings and you go to Docker. The same thing we did in the last video to get the AI image generator is another way you can get any of these tools you're seeing on screen. So if you don't have the advanced color selector, which is this thing right over here, then you just go here and click that. And if it's not in the place that you want, you just simply hover over the name, and now you can actually move it. If I unlock it, there we go. You can move it around to whatever the placement you like is. But personally, I like this layout a lot. I think it's probably the most intuitive, is having your layers over here, which we'll explain in a minute, having your color selector over here, and of course, having your tools over here. Now, before we get into the actual AI image generator aspect, let me quickly break down what a lot of these are. So I think a lot of you probably intuitively know what a lot of this is. For example, same as Photoshop, you have the layered system. If you have no idea what this is, essentially this is your layers. So this image is on top of this image, and this image is on top of this image. And if you wanted to move those images around, you can see that they're on top of each other, and you can of course move that around and see that, right? Easy breezy. Up here, we can see that we have the color selector, which if you're using the paintbrush, you can see that it's on that. If we want more red, we can select that. If we wanted more blue or something like that, we can get that. So that is all that is. It helps you color in things. Up here, we have the tool options, super simple. It's essentially whenever you use a tool, it will give you more advanced options over here, which honestly, if you get to any tool that you don't know, just fiddle around with it and have the undo key bind, and you can have a lot of fun with understanding what it's kind of doing just by fiddling around with a couple seconds and repair any sort of damage you've done. Up here, you have the various sizes of the brush and stuff like that, so you can make the brush even more massive, but we'll talk more about the tools, specifically the brush. But just know that there's more things you can do up here, specifically in relation to drawing. We have the left side, which is where I have all of the actual tools, which you can select freehand if you want, but we're going to be binding a lot of them. So don't worry about it. And this is something really important. This little brush preset is very important because a lot of the cool features that are often found within Photoshop, so for instance, like clone, is located here. And this is the favorites menu. So if we go actually up here, you guys can see that I have my favorites. So I've favorited all of the brushes, but you might have to go to all and fiddle around with the ones you actually want. But if you want my recommendation, just go with the clone tool. The distort tool is kind of handy. And of course, the blur tool or sharpen tool is really nice, especially if you're making thumbnails or something like that. But alas, we'll get to the most common tools in a moment. Let us get back to the AI image generator, which is a super focus for what we just downloaded and what we're going to be using a lot. So last time I left you a little bit high and dry because we just downloaded Krita, but I didn't even show you how to hit go. The reason why is because I didn't want to actually overwhelm you with anything more than what you needed. And also it's pretty simple, but I'll walk you through first the AI image generator, the plugin that we downloaded, which is basically running something called Comfy UI. It's kind of not important, but alas, here's the lay of the land for this one application. And then we'll go over all of these other bits on screen. So this is where you would choose your template. Your templates are located in here, and I don't want to go over that just yet, but it's in your style folders right here. So this is where you can basically go between your templates. But I don't want to go over styles too much because it's a bigger thing, and it's something that if you just got right one time, you watch one video and it completely sets you on the right path, do that, please. So right here, you can see your prompt box. This is where you're going to put in your prompts, your keywords, the things that will help build and composite your actual image. Also, the red mark down here, of course, is if we delete that, you can see it's your negative prompts. So this is something that you want to avoid when you're actually prompting. Fantastic. Now this is a little complicated. Basically, this is the one you're mainly going to use as you generate. Anyways, upscaling is a big thing, which can actually make your image look significantly better while adding in, hopefully, not too many additional things that you don't want. Basically, it can take a really small image and make it immensely big and also give detail when you zoom in. It's incredible. We'll get into that eventually. But the thing that you've probably seen the most shorts and the content that I always use, because it's such a visually appealing thing, especially if you happen to already have a decent amount of artistic skill, this feature by itself, the live paint feature, deserves a whole video absolutely to itself. Honestly, a lot of these do. But the TLDR is essentially as you are painting on a canvas, it is observing all of those colors and those kind of pathways, and it's trying to conceptualize what you're doing. Now, it's terrible if you have nothing on the canvas and you don't have any prompts, but if you say like girl or boy or man or mech armor, whatever it is, and you start drawing like gray for mech armor, it's going to slowly start to make that. But if you use like a pink color, it's going to be like, I guess like pink armor, maybe, like it's going to have a harder time. So you still need to give it some guidance on what you're drawing. And then you can help really guide it towards what you're looking for, which is great. But your mileage will very much vary if you don't have the right settings and the right model doing the right things. So that's why I want to make a video about that too. I'm sorry to keep saying that, but I think it's just important not to bulldoze everything. Then we have animations, which is a whole can of worms, and also graphs. But for right now, we're going to stick to just generate. All right, that's it. So what you'll actually see is this right here. So essentially this controls the strength of how much you want to add noise and distortion to your image. Think of this as if you have a baseline image, you can keep it really low and it will almost change nothing about the image. But if you increase it, it will change a lot more about the image. Kind of hard to describe, but basically AI is working off of pixels and patterns. So it will basically add a bunch of pixels. So the higher this is, the more pixels you're essentially adding, or the more static you're essentially adding for it to recomposite and recompile. Now, this is really finicky, and I would highly advise you guys use something else that I will hopefully teach you in the future, which is this, control nets. This is something that is your key to control and power within Krita that not enough people use, and it makes the biggest difference from you just kind of letting the wind take you wherever you want and being a mess to absolutely getting exactly what you want extremely quickly, because you understand the way this thing is operating. Now, there is a ton of control nets. As you can see, there's reference image, there's style, there's composite, there's face, there's scribble. Scribble is the thing that's basically using the live paint thing. But Scribble is fantastic. But the one that I use the most is line art. Hence why I provided it within our big boy course, the Artist Arsenal for Krita AI thing. But just know that that's located right here, and you won't see it at first. You have to hit this little plus button right here, boom, and you'll get this. Now, you might be wondering what this thing is off to the side. This is basically for segmentation when you're prompting. So if you have like two characters, you have one character that's like, I don't know, like a pumpkin man, and then you have another person that's like a goth person. Oftentimes, if you just use the same prompt, it will intersplice all of these different components within your character. But this allows you to basically say, like, this area, I want you to only add this prompt to that area, and then this area to that prompt to that area. It's called region mapping. But alas, some probably you're not going to use, especially when you're just starting out. But just know that it's there. And then of course we have the comically huge generate or refine button. This is depending on what you're going to do. If you're going to go less, then it's going to actually change it to refine, because you're basically trying to take more of the pixels that currently exist in the image and shape them to what you want. But if you go all the way maxed out, it's going to use mainly just the colors that you left behind as kind of a reference, and not so much the lines or the overall composition, if that makes any sense. Alas, the other thing that I think not a lot of people know about, which is really, really helpful, is this thing. So this is where you can actually like batch 10. So you can like give it a prompt, hit 10, and then hit go. And it will give you 10 images. So we'll just keep rattling off until its set of 10 is done. Another thing you can do is just hit it multiple times. So you can hit like 5 and then just hit it twice, and you'll just stack up to 10. And then if you ever want to like clear, because maybe you misclicked, just hit this. It's just all, which is cancel. So you just hit cancel all or cancel active, whatever, or cancel the queue that you set up, things like that. So just that's what that is. But right below here we have fixed, and then we have a number here, and it's called seed. The TLDR is every single time you create an image, it's going to randomly generate it based on a whole different composite of pixels. But if you use seed, essentially it's going to keep the image looking more the same. This can be a good thing, a bad thing. I'm sure you'll just understand if you just turn on and off every now and again. But the TLDR is if you want an image to have more of the composition that you're trying to keep from the original image, it's not a bad idea to say, give me the same seed. But if your image isn't changing, then that's because you have seed on. And there's other ways to make it so that your image more adherent to what the previous image is, which I believe is control net line art, just in case you're curious. But alas. And of course, down here is all of your attempts. By the way, I should have mentioned what you're looking at. It's just something cool I think you can do with AI art that I'm showing on our school community. But essentially, you can find any image that you determine to not be very good. This is just what I found when I typed in bad art. Don't honestly think it's that bad. Honestly, it looks a lot better than what I used to make. Anyways, but this is what you can basically create. And of course, it doesn't start that way. First off, it starts with like basically getting it slightly better, and then knowing how to sharpen it with control nets, and then boom. Then actually having it run the final pass, and it looks substantially good. At least I think. At least better than what it started as. And it's really cool that you can take your old art and just refine it and kind of see what your childhood self probably envisioned when they were drawing it, if not even better. Alas. So that is the thing that I didn't tell you beforehand. This is essentially Krita AI, the AI part of it. But what are the most used tools within this program? And this is something I wish more people talked about. It's the actual one-to-one, what tools do I use all the time, and how does that play into a workflow of this? Instead of just, let me ramble about all of these tools that you'll never use, etc. So this is why these tools are, to me, the highest rated. If you're following along on the school guide, I laid these out really simply for you, and the why they're so good, as well as some of the bonus features from some of the hotkeys / hold shift, and gives you a utility or an effect on that. Alas. Let's start with the number one, which is the thing that Krita is built on, which is the paint tool, the paintbrush. So first things first, you might be wondering why the paintbrush tool is so good. Aren't we making AI art? Well, not only does the paintbrush tool help because the way AI works in general is by colors, or pixels, I should say. Maybe you had something weird where you wanted this character's neck to not be exposed. Essentially, all you need to do is introduce some coloration to this, and it should understand what you're trying to do. It should be understanding, hey, you want less neck showing in this context. Now, of course, this does have something to do with like how much you're trying to generate and introduce new pixels, but this is a great way to do it. But that's actually not the main reason why Paint tool is so powerful in this. The main thing is in conjunction with masking. So it usually works like this. You see a certain image that you actually really like. Maybe you're like, okay, I really like this image. I like how soft it is, but I really like the hair of this other person. I like how they had more contrast, but I ultimately liked this kind of glow here, but I like this, so can I have both? And you can. You can do it the really slow way, which is essentially like this, add transparent mask, and this will drop down this for you. And then you just have to erase but via the colors. So black will basically erase, and then white will basically pull it back. So as you can see, it's kind of hard to see because they're very similar images, but I've just erased all of it. So if I just wanted this part, I would go back down to white and have that bleed through and have that contrast show up that way. And you could blend things together and get really cool contrast in that way. So if we did this, you can see that it's much more dark. And if you have your hotkey set up, you can easily swap between them, which is something that I'll hopefully walk you through how to do after the fact, at the end. So that's why the paintbrush is so good, as well as just the mask tool is really, really good. It's going to kind of help you configure things in a really interesting way. So the second tool that you'll use a ton outside of the paint tool and the mask tool is the transform tool. This is essentially just going to let you move things around, make things smaller so you can keep certain aspects if you want to change the overall composition of the image and actually have it like be some sort of different thing. So if we were to use the fourth most used tool, which is the selector tool, let's see how these all kind of play in tandem, hence why it's hard to stop and start with one. They kind of all feed together. So if we were to basically say, hey, this character's eye is a little bit too gigantic, how do we make that significantly smaller? So we have this. The way I always like to do it, just because I don't like to destroy previous things, I like to go back, I'll make a duplicate of that, and then I'll hit a mask, and now the eye is largely cropped out. And now I can just go like this, and extend this and make this much bigger if I wanted. It could be a whole Cyclops looking weird thing. And because we did it this way of basically duplicating the image and then masking it over our selection, we can go over here with the paintbrush tool and basically fan this out so that edge is significantly less apparent, and make it look significantly less horrible and horrifying, you know? And basically go about it that way, although I don't. This is supposed to be like a tutorial, but I'm getting there's a certain level of standard here, okay? Anyways, but the point is that's one of the things you can do. So again, just to go over those in a slower way, the paintbrush tool is absolutely fantastic. The reason why is because it helps you fade and gradient in things like that. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's jump back to the paintbrush tool. One of the things you have access to that are just amazing hotkeys, holding shift and going left or right will expand the like size of your image, which is really nice, not having to sit here, see if it's too big, trying to get that right amount. It's just annoying. Hold shift and go left or right. It's fantastic. It's super easy, especially when you're trying to do this detail work. You can go smaller, stuff like that. Anyways, The other thing that you can really do that's amazing is this. If you ever like are taking off too much meat and you don't want that, you can essentially change the opacity and it can make it so that it's more of a softer hand, which is great. Anyways, the other thing that's really nice is just simply right-clicking on your canvas with your paintbrush tool equipped, boom, and this will give you all of the like most used paintbrushes ever. And I do believe you can actually like right-click these and change them out if you don't want them. But the ones you're probably going to use the most is Hard Edge, which is this one, which will give you like a solid line, completely erase certain things like that. And then of course the one that you use the absolute most, which is this fanning airbrush, so that you can kind of blend things together in a really pretty way. And if we jump back to the size tool, you can see how there's different options here specifically within the transform tool. So this is actually really helpful if you're wanting to kind of keep some sort of composition. So in the transform tab, if you hit this button and you hold shift when you're holding one of these windows, it will keep the overall composition or the size the same. But if you hit this, it'll basically make it so that it falls inwards to itself and not down. So you'll be able to easily tell. So it goes in, just like into the target when that target is equipped. Now, if you unequip that target, it's going to just fall into whatever your like corner point is, which makes sense. There's other fun tools right here, which are basically called inverse tools. So you can like flip stuff. You can turn it upside down if you want. It doesn't destroy the image. It can easily just go back like that. You can also turn it like this if you want to. So these I would honestly just advise you just play around with, because you'll start to understand what they're kind of meant to do. So they can kind of warp things and kind of give you like a cool dimensional effect, especially if you're using like text or any of these variables. These all have different slight use cases, which are all interesting, can help you kind of transform and morph things if something is looking a little odd to you and you don't like it. Yeah, it also makes stuff that's cursed, of course. But that essentially is the transform tab. And then the other tool that is, again, we kind of cover it really quickly, but it's the selection tool. So there is a bunch of different selection tools. Well, there's honestly two. One of them is the free selection, which is just this, which is really fast. You can like just easily add to stuff as well. And again, if we look at the selection tool, we have more options here. We just hover over it. It says add. So if we have that one selected, if we go over and like do this, it's going to add that to it. If we have, I think it's subtract this, it'll take things away. Like that. So it's just good to know what this little panel does, and just hover over the thing and it'll tell you what that is. We have feather, we have grow. These will control like the level of gradient on if selection is being faded at its border, stuff like that. Stuff that I'm assuming some of you know, but I just want to cover my bases. But as much as the freehand selection tool is nice, it to me leaves a lot to be desired. A lot of the times when you're messing with AI art, you're not going to be freestyling this so much because you're going to be missing stuff. So oftentimes what you're actually going to be using is something that's a little more precise, which is this. This tool right here is the one that I would actually suggest. This one is a lot better in my opinion because it actually lets you curve to things. So you can still do the squares if you want, you just got to click. But if you want to do more than this, you can actually click and you can zoom in and you can curve around certain objects with greater ease. And if you ever made a mistake and you don't want to like do it that way, you can just hit right click. So you're hitting click to actually apply a thread or a needle or a selection. Then you can basically hit right click to go backtrack, and it's super easy like that. But you might get yourself into trouble if you're not used to using it. So if you wanted to curve around an image like this, you can see that we perfectly match this, but then when we stop, we're gonna have to fight against it and it's gonna curve in this weird way, which we don't want. But that's a really easy fix. All you have to do is hold Alt. So you can get around this curve by doing this. And then as soon as you get it where you want, you can hit Alt, and this will basically free aim this so that you can go over here, and this is going straight this way. So we didn't corrupt any of our actual movement, but you gotta be careful because as soon as you hold Shift or Alt, sorry, it will lock this background thing to wherever you're looking at. But it's really fast. You can basically get really easy curves doing it that way. So I would highly suggest that selection tool or the rest of the other ones. But just remember to use Alt or else you'll kind of find yourself being like, oh my God, I've trapped myself, what happened? So yeah. So that is essentially the lay of the land of Krita. That is segment 1 really done. Hopefully I tightened that up, but essentially it's honestly not that complicated. Most of the stuff, if you have just the slightest bit of courage just to dabble with and be open to messing up, you'll understand all of the limitations and their gains. So yeah, but now that you know all these impactful tools and how they kind of affect in a workflow, finally, we're going to talk about how to save an absolute abundance of time. And please do this. It kills me so much when I see people click around Krita or any other software. They sit over here, they click this, they go over here, click this. Guys, please, one hand on your keyboard will make such a big difference. One press, your hand never has to move. Press a button and you'll immediately swap between all of these tools and you'll just cut out on so much wasted time and so much headache. Because a lot of stuff you're going to have to do in repetition, like erase things, like mask things, like switch to the painting tool and adjust things and fade lines and stuff like that. You switch to the selection tool and do things like that. Instead of having to jump over here all the time and switch when you're trying to mask something and constantly having to go black and then go over here and go white just to be able to fade a line, why not just hotkey the ability to transition between your foreground and background, all with the click of a button right below the paint tool button that's above it. That's what we're gonna essentially do. Sorry if I sound aggressive. To me, I just really wish people did this because it makes such a big difference. So we're gonna make this as easy as humanly possible. Right here, you're seeing a keyboard layout. We're just gonna keep the top line of Q to T. That's all gonna be your baseline tools that you're gonna use a lot, the ones we just mentioned. And then below them are going to be like the bonus features, like I mentioned with the paint tool, transitioning between the foreground and things like that. For the selection tool, something that you'll encounter a lot is wanting to select the inverse of something. So inversing your selection. So if you highlighted the head, you want to inverse and highlight the outside of it if you want to make an adjustment around it, stuff like that. So we're going to assign based on those two rows. So Q to T, A to G. And maybe if we're getting crazy, we might go Z to B, okay? But we want your hand to not basically move. You're just your fingertips basically to tap and to immediately transition between these tools you're gonna be using ad nauseum. Cool, but in order to do that, you're gonna actually need to pull up the hotkey menu. So we're gonna do it like this. You're just gonna go to settings. You're gonna go to configure Krita, the first thing there. You're gonna be at general probably, but it's gonna eventually kick you to keyboard shortcuts. So now you have this search bar. So I made this as easy as humanly possible for you. If you just make your way over to our guide, I have a section over here which literally just says search and then input the key, okay? And I've considered damn near everything. So for instance, the tool you're gonna be using a lot is the paint tool. So that's gonna be on your pointer finger, honestly on T, so on and so forth. So it's really simple. And it's on screen right now. You just have to type a little bit, or you can just go over to the school course and just find it that way. You copy this, go there, paste it, and then it will show up the #1 result, and then you just put the key that you want to be assigned with it. But for us, we're gonna be saying T. But again, if you have a different finger layout or a different kind of keyboard, fantastic, just use that. And we're gonna go over that, over each one of the things. So I'm probably on screen showing you like an image of a keyboard, and I'm just showing you this is gonna go there, that's gonna go there, easy breezy. And it's simple, as simple as I can make it. Just copy the text, put it in there, hit a letter, you're good. You're good. Now, whenever you hit that button, it's gonna pop with the paintbrush tool. Fantastic. All right, so hopefully after you just ran through all the inputs and hotkey everything, you can use this to help you guide out what I was really thinking, especially as I was thinking through this. So I wanted to make this as streamlined as possible. So just know that your pointer finger is going to be tied to your paint tool. So T is your paintbrush, and then if you hit B really quickly, it will set your foreground and background to black and white. And then if you hit G, you can alternate between these two things. If we take this image right here, which by the way, this is from our Krita AI Arsenal course thing. Yeah. So let's say we really like this hairstyle and her eyes in this, but we want to keep the crown. All we need to do is add a mask layer, and then we can just paint away the crown if we wanted, or we could paint away this and get the hair coming through, maybe even that. But if we say, oh crap, I accidentally got the white, we can just transition to our foreground color, go back to white, and paint that in. And we can kind of feather that out bit by bit without making mistakes and go back and forth, which you're going to be doing a lot of. Maybe you think the nose looks better here, maybe you don't because it's got some weird distortion things here, which we could touch up, and things like that. Maybe you like the eyes in the other one, but you don't want it to look as harsh, so you want it to blend much easier. You want to get that lighting in there. All of these things can kind of add up, and you can kind of take from a conglomeration of images and make something that's really, really nice and much more believable, and things like that, you know? So that's why it's really nice to be able to swap back and forth between the foreground tools so you can have an easier time blending. Just remember to hit B every single time you do it, because if you're on different colors, let's say if I want a hotkey orange and then let's say green, jumping back and forth between the foreground colors will toggle these colors that are not black and white or not pure black and white, which will make it so the easiest so that you can mask. Alas, so to streamline this as much as possible, your pointer finger is exactly tied to your paint tools. Your ring finger or pinky finger are tied to navigation or adding a special feature. So your pinky, Q, A, and Z all add a mask, add a paint layer, or add a filter layer. So you just can think of your pinky as adding an extra layer to whatever image you're compositing, right? Great. And W, S, and X all have things that actually like attack or adjust the image, i.e. W is just gonna give you your navigation for this little thing that lets you kind of activate more things if you double click on them. S allows you to create a group, which is far better than just deleting or merging images. That way you're not losing anything, or you can't like go back and fix it if you just don't want to destroy things when you're using Photoshop-like tools. And of course, remove layers when you actually just need to get layers out of the way, which if you're pulling a bunch of examples and blending a bunch of things, you'll need to kind of delete those layers. And of course, E and D are related because of their selection tools and inversing selection, and then R is just the variable that I had to throw there. And if you want to change or add anything from F to C to V that you might be wanting to use, those are just flex options that you can just know. But eventually you'll map out this in your head, and it'll be so much easier, and you'll save so much time not having to pivot, reach over here, grab a tool, and etc. This is so good to do early on. I hope you do. Alas, I hope that makes sense. I hope that's streamlined, and I hope you succeed. But alas, all is not perfectly well. The next big hurdle that you're going to have to face when using Krita or Krita AI is the models situation, which is actually a thing that I think a lot of people just get super overwhelmed by. Because you have the open source community, which is a power cell in itself, just a huge energy gain. But it's also wholeheartedly overwhelming because there's so many things and nobody really tells you anything, any of them. So yes, that's what we'll be covering in the next video. And if you wanted something a little bit more high quality and good bang for your buck, especially if you're a person who's really into this and have an extra $40 kicking around, I made a super stack of keywords that I actually researched and applied based on all of the analytical data about the highest performing AI images and all of their effects, all of these keywords that make a massive impact. I also made a forge, which shows you a representation of the keyword followed by the effect on the image, so it can help you understand the complexity of that, as well as a whopping crazy amount of line art that you can use for a complex composition, which is kind of things that it's really hard to kind of like prompt a specific type of like zoomed in angle that's super artistic but just gorgeous. It's easier to do that with line art and the complex composition of other images to do that, so that you can have your keywords be just focused on aesthetics and like the pleasantness of lighting and stuff like that, which gets you way more returns than trying to give yourself a complex composition and then add all those beautiful metrics as well. Alas, if you have any interest in that, go check it out, but I'll keep making content regardless, and I'll keep trying to help you as best as I possibly can. Thank you kindly for your time, and goodbye for now, my friends.